All right, it's often important to include multiple factors in the same experiment in order to examine what happens when the factor levels are applied in different combinations. So sometimes you might have soil, a certain type of fertilizer with a certain amount of water. That's two factors, fertilizer and water. And you might have full water, half water, or different amounts of water, different amounts of fertilizer, and all those combinations together would be all of your different treatments. For example, the following diagram shows a study of the effects of different fertilizer-water combinations on the juiciness and tastiness of tomatoes. So here we now have our 12 plants broken into 6 groups total, and these 6 groups are a combination of no fertilizer, or at least maybe the old fertilizer with no water, the half dose with no water, the full dose with no water. Then that control group, or the old no fertilizer or the old fertilizer with water, and then the half dose with water and the full dose with water. This is not blocking. These are actual 6 different treatments. Confounding, this is a new word, confounding variables. When the levels of one factor are associated with the levels of another factor, we say that those two factors are confounded. When we have confounding factors, we cannot separate out the effects of one factor from the effects of the other. Confounding can arise in experiments when some other variables associated with a factor has an effect on the response. A confounding variable is a third variable that is unfortunately intertwined in our experiment. Our goal is to measure how the factor affects the response, but when another variable is intertwined, we can't tell how much of these variables affect the response. We describe this problem as confounding. Here's a good example of what a confounding variable is. We wish to see if detergent A cleans better than detergent B. We use detergent A in one washing machine. We use detergent B in a different machine. So the machines were not controlled. Which machine was used is confounded into this experiment. At the end of this experiment, we have confounding. That is, we cannot tell if a difference in the cleanliness of the clothes is caused by the detergent or by the quality of the machine that was used. So this is the reason why we want to control all these sources of variation. If we don't control how much exercise the animals get for the food scenario, then we don't know if dogs got sick because of more or less exercise. So it's confounded in the result. And once you have confounding, you can't recover from it. It's why you really want to think about all possibilities of confounding before the experiment starts. And another example, Professor Stephen Ceci or Ceci, I'm not sure how to say that, of Cornell University, I'm sure this is a true story, performed an experiment to investigate the effect of a teacher's classroom style on student evaluations. He kept everything the same during the 2 successive terms and modified only his teaching style. In the fall term, he was subdued. In the spring, he was very enthusiastic in his teaching. This just means he was, not very smiley and kind of boring. In the spring, he was very enthusiastic. He found that the students in the spring rated him much better, even though the students in both terms scored almost identically on the final exam. So it's not that those students were better students or performed better, so they were happier. They performed just about identically on the final exam. So why did the spring students rate him better? Was it because of his enthusiastic teaching style? Well, we don't know. Actually, there is confounding at work in this example. Fall term ends cold and bleak, while spring term ends blooming flowers and singing birds. Could the students have just been influenced by the season and not by his teaching style? There is no way to tell. There were 2 factors at work here. His attitude, so his teaching style, we could call it his teaching style, and the season. And because these were not controlled, then the levels of one are associated with the levels of the other. Because these are not controlled, they are confounded. So it's just something you always want to think about when working on an experiment. It's why you might want to do a pilot experiment first, just to kind of think about these things, a smaller scales of the experiment. And there's like, just like with sampling design and professional pollsters, experiment design is also its own whole field just about in college. Might fall under like a psychology department or even in a statistics department, but good experiment design is a whole subject just in itself. So we are just touching upon it here. Please make sure you read through what can go wrong and what have we learned, and also the AP tips at the back end. Good information for you to know for your tests, quizzes, skills.